wanted to go into the basics of why the developmental archetypes could apply to your life. We'll start with the Starlet. She was called the baby girl archetype, but we've renamed it. She's basically a woman who didn't develop enough of, say, the masculine or the yang side of the mind, but she's looking to fulfill this, and in doing so, she can develop some behaviors. And so, through my observations and research, I've come to see that they can struggle with a kind of always seeking attitude, where in their minds they can be lost and tangled up in this way of always being attracted to different kinds of men. And it can largely be connected back to the fact that her unconscious is not fulfilled. She's not doing this to, say, cheat on her boyfriend or anything. Or husband. She's just looking to fill that cup that wasn't filled, which should have been filled in early development. It's not to say that dad was supposed to do everything. I think our biology is tied to a tribal model. So we probably would have had other guys around to help her fulfill that, and so it would help her shape her identity. And so ultimately it comes down to identity. And I believe that it's, or even further, more ultimately, it goes all the way to the root, which is to look at it from a survival standpoint. Survival is pretty much all of who we are biologically. You could even argue that love is generated for that because of our incredible intelligence and need to survive within a unit of people, of many people. And so it creates an efficient dynamic of bonding and survival. And I believe as a high priority for survival, those unconscious behaviors from this archetype are arising because of a need to balance oneself to be able to then impart the right characteristics into their offspring. And otherwise they would be at an imbalance, and it would be a significant issue. It would further snowball into really messing up all of society. And so that would be one aspect of, say, the Starlet, right? But we're not going to go into her really deep. We're going to go to all of them. So the next one would be the manifester. It's the one that I was born as, or not born as, but like ended up developing as. And this guy is going to be like the Starlet, where he lacks the masculine. He's seeking that for a foundation of things. He needs it to be able to survive and be competent. In today's world, there's all kinds of manifestors out there who find a way to survive and be competent, but also still subtracting the masculine. That's completely different and set aside from normal, say, biological and primal realities of living in the wild. Now you can make a YouTube video and be extremely creative and make plenty of money, and that's what manifestors would actually be quite good at. One can argue that this is somehow a good survival priority because of that, but no, I'm saying that a manifestor is only half of what he can be. When he balances out, he's going to be both. He can go out and hunt and climb mountains and be creative. So I've noticed today that people are oftentimes one or the other, and manifestor exclusively would be more on the feminine side of the mind, more creative, empathetic, nice, indirect. Usually when he's going into a confrontation, he's often indirect about it. He plays into being more vulnerable and soft with his approach, rather than very direct and to hit home. It's not to say that he needs to be extremely direct and on the very other side to therefore be masculine or be fully a man. No, the key is balance. He needs both. So it applies to all archetypes. But his state of confrontation would be well enhanced with both sides, though when he's just a manifestor without that, he's oftentimes going to be more vulnerable and receptive, or like playing the victim, or even he might react really strongly and be out of control in that argument. And so it's really important that he finds this balance so that he doesn't end up in these situations. So another archetype would be the forger. He is the man with a lot of masculine integration. He's the other side. So he's going to be He's gonna have more of a struggle, not with confrontation, but with how intense his boundary setting is. He can oftentimes be very prone to setting boundaries with people, but then it can come off as too harsh to many others out there, especially the Starlet. Starlet oftentimes ends up in a relationship with a forger, and she ends up feeling like it's too intense, and so she can feel very foreign to this because she doesn't have the masculinity within, so she doesn't understand him. She doesn't understand the boundaries, and on top of that, his is oftentimes too harsh, and so it scares her, makes her wary and fearful. And while she might be in that relationship because she wants that kind of energy, she can also not handle it oftentimes. So the forger is looking to balance with the other side that the manifestor is good at, which would be the empathetic, softer side, more targeted understanding. You've probably run into this in your life where you had an authoritarian who came in and said, like, you did this wrong, but but it wasn't necessarily like 100% wrong. Like, what you did was maybe wrong on like a macro scale, but then on the micro, there's probably a lot of nuance he's not accepting or understanding or looking at. So he's just cutting right to the core point and, going at you about that, right? So, but what it's supposed to be like is it's supposed to feel like you're cared for and loved and understood in a situation, but too, like, made to acknowledge where you were wrong and to be held accountable, right? That's supposed to be the balance. But a lot of people aren't balanced today, and so we see a lot of the opposite. So the next one would be the Warrioress. She is going to be the woman who is on the masculine side of the coin. She's very competent. She's usually in the workplace extremely good at what she does, or she eventually develops to be good at what she does. She can be very competitive and very cutting edge. She can be good with her words, especially with writing a lot of times, not all the time. She can be very dynamic, well relied upon, stoic. All the traits you might expect to see in a man, like, but within a woman's body. Like, she's very very understanding of this whole concept, so she can do very, very well inside a corporate environment. It's not to say the Starlet can't. It's just that the way that the Warrioress goes about is a lot more ambitious and higher ego, and she gets more respect generally. But on the flip side, her relationships tend to suffer a lot. She might seem like Wonder Woman at work, but she can really struggle to not make a man feel like he has like a lot of, like, she's oftentimes making men feel invalid because she's really high power and she doesn't need any help. And she can also too be really critical of men's abilities and whatnot, often because she has this, usually she'll have developed a lot of that masculine within herself as a priority, so she'll typically be more critical of, say, a manifestor archetype that she's in a relationship with. But she can be in the relationship with him because she's seeking that unconscious feminine aspect that the manifestor has, so she's very forgiving. So she has a tendency to be open to emotional manipulation, but not emotional abuse, but not physical abuse. Or the Starlet's more open to physical abuse than emotional abuse. And it's because, again, it goes back to the unconscious as prioritizing that development. So the Warrioress is, by and large, you see her out in the open, she seems like a super normal person that you'd really respect. But when she gets to a hot point in relationships, it can be very explosive. She can just flip the switch and become a different person. It's this emotional dysregulation that's shared between her and the forger. So there's a notable Warrioress might be Layla Hormozy, which is one that I like to look to because Alex is a forger, so they're the classic power couple where they're both on the masculine sides and they keep each other sharp and moving forward because they're both on that side. But what they're seeking is that inner child / feminine, to have fun and to like let go and be softer and just kind of relax. Anyway, so that's the basics on the more four core of the developmental archetypes. But then there's one last one, which is the balanced archetype. So balance archetype is a well, it's basically someone who got all of the core developmental aspects that they needed from two nearly perfect examples. So, like in my book, I write about the radiant feminine and then the emanating masculine, and like how that's understood characteristically. And it's not really well or easy to understand because even in history, it's very hard to find over the thousands of years of access we have a fully emanating man or radiant woman. They just almost don't exist. They're very, very rare. So I venture to say that no one's truly balanced. I've really not met anyone. I've not seen anyone on television who's like this anywhere. So, but my detail analysis is far more micro than most people. So a lot of people get the idea that they're potentially, like a radiant woman or an emanating man, but it's just really not the case in generally all cases. But I'm open to seeing it. But largely it comes about from full development of those connections made early on, and with those two prime examples. I think there's a lot of people who are in like a kind of subcategory of the balance where they did get reasonably good examples of both and were coming out healed, and then therefore they are far more balanced than the rest of society. But I still argue that there wouldn't be like the most truly fully integrated and balanced. So anyway, yeah, overall, when you reach that balance, you're not really unconsciously seeking as intensely, and your relationships are more balanced. So I come with this from like a personal experience of my story of balancing out more. I wouldn't say that I'm anywhere near perfect, but I've gotten a really, 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 really long way forward because of the integration process. So anyway, if you're interested in these kinds of things, definitely follow along or subscribe, wherever you're seeing this. So anyway, my name is Asa. See ya.